Chef Davida Shallecka has cooked for over 2 decades in New York, San Francisco, and the Napa Valley. He's also a television culinary producer, having worked alongside celebrated hosts Jacques Pepin, Joanne Weir, Jose Andres, and with Kat Cora on the Food Network's Iron Chef America. Early in his career, David spent 5 years doing internships in the kitchens of France and Italy's greatest restaurants, before taking an offer to become a chef on board an Italian sailing yacht based in the French Riviera. The extended trip abroad, including a handful of seasons at sea, led to the publication of David's acclaimed book, Mediterranean Summer, a culinary travel memoir with a unique view.
The book takes place on the private yacht that I cooked on when I lived overseas. It was my first chef's job, and what's really important is the word chef, because the story is really about stepping up and taking ownership of something. I had gone abroad originally to find out what transforms one from being a cook into a chef, and the job on the yacht, I think, gave me that opportunity. The yacht that I worked on is a gorgeous 126-foot classic schooner. She was built in 1930. The owners that I worked for had her restored before our first season, so everything was shining and glistening. A lot of gorgeous mahogany, varnished wood, brass, teak, new lines. She'd been sailing the Mediterranean and Caribbean for decades, and when she was acquired by my bosses, they decided to keep her in the Mediterranean. Our itinerary was great. The standard thing, I'd worked on this yacht for a few seasons, and the standard itinerary was, well, we were based in Antibes, which is between Cannes and Nice, and Antibes is a very big yacht harbor, very important yacht harbor. And we would start the season in the Riviera for a few weekends in Saint-Tropez or Cannes, Villefranche, and then at the Monaco Grand Prix. That was pretty much the start of the yachting season, so it was a big weekend in Monte Carlo. And then after that, we'd make our way every weekend, we'd go into Italy and make our way down the western Italian coast, starting in Portofino and continuing through Liguria, into Tuscany, farther south into Campania. We stayed around the Amalfi area for a while, Capri, Ischia, Positano for a few days usually, and then we would cross the Tyrrhenian Sea and go to the Emerald Coast in the northeastern corner of Sardinia, and then make our way up into Corsica, starting in Bonifacio in the south, working our way to the north to Calvi, and then en route to France, and we finish our season at a couple of classic yacht regattas that are around the Riviera, September, October. One of the greatest challenges I think I faced when I was on board was given to me during the interview. The owners said to me that nothing in the menus throughout the whole season should be repeated. The rationale being that since the boat was going to be moving a lot, the cuisine changes in every port of call, whether by region or locality, so the menus and the dishes needed to reflect the indigenous offerings of every place where we were going, which was quite a wonderful challenge. In addition to that, here's this young cook cooking Italian food for Italians in Italy, working out of a small galley while at sea. I also had to cook for the crew. We were a crew of 7, and I was a half deckhand, so I had a lot of responsibilities up on deck as well. So it was certainly tall order for my first chef's job. The food shopping was incredible. The open-air markets in the Mediterranean Rim are extraordinary. There's so much available. There were a lot of times where we would be in France in the morning and then move the boat into Italy that afternoon or early the next day. So I could, in one day, sometimes go into the open-air market in Antibes and have a lot of bonjour, monsieur, and then later in the day it would be buonasera, signore, which was kind of neat to work in 2 or 3 languages. But the ingredients were wonderful, and I had a really well, in the stores of the yacht, which is the pantry, the larder, I was pretty well stocked with all the ingredients I needed for the base of my cooking, which allowed me to find just a few fresh ingredients I needed when I got into the markets to fulfill my menus. And a lot of times, I didn't even really write the menus till I got into the markets. The market told me what I needed to make from what was available, what was in abundance, what looked great. So it was a really, really interesting way to work and a dream for many cooks. So, it took a long time to understand simplicity with food, and as you develop your palate and it's maybe the foundation of a repertoire, sometimes the ingredient has enough going for it that even doing something to it might take away from it. So you start to put it together and say, maybe I shouldn't be doing anything. And now the food becomes simpler and simpler, and that's how you really see how this is an ingredient-driven style of cooking. Basically, what you end up having is the Mediterranean diet. And we talk about this paradox a lot, this French way of being and eating. Why is it so different, and why are they so thin, and the Italians and the Spanish? But, to me, there really isn't a paradox. It's more about, it's an attitude, it's a mindset, a lifestyle. And I feel that once you conform into that and you're being that way, it's really not much of an effort, and it's good for you. As I got more proficient in the language, I'd eavesdrop on people all the time, and food seemed to be the number one topic. Whether I was on a tram, in a bus, in trains, in train stations, talking to my coworkers at some of the restaurants where I worked, chefs. It was always about food, what we're going to make, what we had, what to look forward to, time of year, a season, a festival, a tradition, one person's way of doing something versus another, on and on and on and on and on. Even the owners of the yacht on the boat that I worked on, I think they were more concerned with how I chose in the market. For example, the tomatoes that I bought and what I was going to do with them depending on their state of ripeness. I think that was more important to them than, they certainly had the capacity to send me to Paris to get something, out of context because they can do that. But it wasn't like that. And I started to put the pieces together and realize that, this is a way of eating and an approach to food and life that's for everybody. The table's horizontal. It's not a hierarchy. And so, words like foodie don't really exist. I mean, you might as well say everybody's a foodie.
To find out more about David's book and Mediterranean Summer, visit Mediterraneansummer.com.